students, welcome back. Today we will be talking about this film called Arrival. It was originally a short story called The Story of Your Life, written by Ted Chiang. So Arrival, this movie was directed by Denis Villeneuve and starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. Basically, the story is about these 12 mysterious alien aircrafts that has suddenly appeared on Earth all around the world. And while different countries have different approaches, the US military recruited a linguist, Professor Louise Banks, starred by Amy Adams, and a mathematician called Ian Donnelly, starred by Jeremy Renner, to trying to solve the reason that these aliens are here. So as it turns out that these aliens, I think they look like octopuses, are what these scientists call heptapods in the movie. And Professor Banks and Ian Donnelly's main mission is to communicate with these aliens and trying to find out the reason that they're here. Through this process, either they're using spoken or written language, they start to understand that these heptapods do not conceive the world in a linear sense. Therefore, they are unable to understand algebra, and their written language is something that looks like a circle, and they're able to convey really complex ideas in these one simple graphic. So as Louise Banks starts to understand these heptapods and start to understand their language, she also starts to get glimpses of the future, and that is the main reason and the method that she actually managed to sort of save the earth at the end of the film. So there are two things that I would like to talk about according to this film. So the first one is race and species. In the film, as mentioned previously, different countries have different approaches to these aliens. So some of them think that we should protect ourselves and we should attack them because we don't know what these heptapods or these aliens want, and they might want to sort of conquer Earth and wipe out humanity, while some others tend to communicate with them and try to understand the reason that they're on Earth. It somehow makes me think that it's true that when two different races or two different species encounter, it's natural for human beings to sort of be afraid and to want to protect yourselves. But that's also how a lot of tragedies in the history of humanity actually happen. This might sound naive, but perhaps if we actually slow down and take time to understand each other, not only the purpose that they're there, or perhaps maybe also their culture and what they're actually thinking about, then perhaps a lot of conflicts can be prevented, and a lot of different things can also be preserved. So secondly, what I would like to talk about is the power of language, which I think is pretty interesting and pretty emphasized in this film. I don't know what you think, but to me, I think language is sort of important and also powerful. It is crucial to communication. Not language only in written form, but also in spoken form as well. It's the first step of knowing what each other think and knowing what our needs are. I think language is important in this sense because it's the essence of communication, and communication is actually the core of understanding, and it is actually how we make ourselves improve. Secondly, I think what is really interesting about language, what is also mentioned in the film, is that it actually sometimes might affect our thinking. In the film, there's this linguist theory that was referred to, saying that when you fully immerse yourself in a foreign language, when you fully understand a language, that language affects how you think and how you see the world. And actually that is what happened in the movie as well, because as the linguist Professor Louise Banks starts to learn the heptapods language, she starts to think like heptapods, and therefore she does not conceive time in this linear way as we do anymore, and instead she can see the whole picture at a time, and therefore that's the reason she is able to see into the future. So for me personally, I don't think there is a strong difference of how I think or how I see things when I speak English or Chinese. However, I do find there are some words or expressions that only exist in a certain language, and therefore sometimes when I talk, I need to borrow that specific word from the other language to fully express how I feel or how I think. Yeah, that's about it for this movie. So this is actually a movie that I like a lot personally, and I do highly recommend you to watch it if you have time. It's a lot deeper than what I've just been talking about, but I believe that you will definitely have a lot of your own different opinions after you've watched it. Before we end, there are 3 questions for you. First of all, What are some of the basic information about this movie? What is the original short story? Who is the author? And who is the director of this film? And who are the main stars? And eventually, what is this movie talking about? Second question, if someday aliens appear on Earth as in the movie and they're just floating there, they're not doing anything, what is your personal take on these aliens? What would you do? Would you prefer to protect yourselves and attack them, or would you rather try to communicate with them first? Or do you have any other tactics or methods? So the third question is about languages. So as mentioned in the film and as in the video previously, the language that you speak actually affects how you think. So do you have any personal experiences that you feel the language that you're learning or the language that you're speaking influence the way of you seeing the world and affects your thinking? What language is that, and how do you think it affects you? That's it for today, and thank you so much for being here as always, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.